Marc and Paulette here, the two travelers in Mexico. And today we're going to talk to you about, basically our 10 reasons to move to Mexico.
That's right.
And I'll let Paulette start with number one, the weather.
Yeah, number one would be weather. I don't think you can find a better place that has great weather. Whether you live by the ocean and you're okay with the hot and humidity, it's a beautiful place to live. I always thought when we were thinking about moving to Mexico several years ago that I would live by the ocean. But I soon came to realize that wasn't going to work because of the hot and humidity.
Well, not only that, Paulette didn't want to live anywhere where she could be got by a tsunami. So we headed up into the highlands of Mexico, where the weather here is fantastic for us. I mean, highs in the upper 80s to low 90s at the hottest. It gets a little cool in February, probably down into the mid 40s, but that's okay.
I forgot about my natural disaster areas to stay away from. That was important to me. But yeah, the mountains are wonderful too. We love the mountains. We didn't realize how much we would love the mountains until we moved here.
So I will say that I see people asking a lot of questions on different Facebook groups, like where should I move to? Well, what you need to determine first is what kind of climate you want.
That's right.
And that'll determine a lot of where you're going to move to. Like Paulette said, if you don't mind the heat and humidity, the beach areas are a good place to go. But if you need a little more dry and semi-arid climate, then you're going to be in the highlands of Mexico.
Right, like there's Huatuco, a lot of expats move there. Puerto Vallarta, that's another one. Buceria.
Sayulita.
Sayulita.
Area.
They call it, what is it, Pancho? Or
San Pancho.
San Pancho or San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different areas that are very nice. But, you know, what's your tolerance with the weather? That's another thing to take into consideration. Watch a lot of YouTube videos on it. That's what I suggest. And also, like I always say, boots on the ground, but these are tennis shoes. On the ground.
Pretty good for an old lady that she can get her foot up that high.
I can.
Still.
I need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
There, no help. But yeah, you know, I say boots on the ground, stay there for at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks, really get a feel for the area, the climate, and all that sort of stuff. I think that's really important because everybody they have their own
preferences and tolerances.
what they really like. You know, some people can't handle the cold, and in the hills, in the mountains, it does get a little bit cold, and you know, in the colder weather, it can get to the low 40s at night. That's pretty chilly, and low 40s early in the morning. That's cold. You know, we don't have central heat and air. In Mexico, nobody's going to have central heat and air. If anything, you'll find the split units, which is the heat and the air. That might already be there, that might not already be there. But yeah, you know, for us, when we were first looking at Mexico, I think looking at a bunch of YouTube videos and the areas really made a lot of difference for us. You know,
I mean, there's a climate for everybody in Mexico. You just have to find it. You know, the Central Highlands, like we're at 6,200 feet. Mexico City is at 7,200 feet, or you can go down to the beach level. Or the farther south you go in Mexico, the more tropical it becomes. If that's what you're looking for.
So that was number one. Number two?
Number two, culture. The culture is just, I find it amazing here, both in terms of the culture of the people and just the culture of the celebrations and with everything that they celebrate. And it seems like in Mexico, every day is a celebration of one kind or another here. That might just be an excuse to make a bunch of noise. I don't know, but
I think the thing that I like about Mexico, and there's probably other countries that do the same thing, but they keep their cultural alive and well, and going from generations to generations, teaching the younger people whatever it is that they're teaching them. There's a lot of different things that could be teaching them. But I like that they keep their culture well and alive and preserved here in Mexico. That's something that you will not really find in the United States where we came from. And I do love that about Mexico.
Mexico keeps their history,
They definitely do.
Yeah. Next up?
Next up would be people and community. Number three. Yeah, number 3, people and community. Now again, we came from the United States. We came from like the Sacramento region. Although I grew up in the East Bay, Mark grew up in San Francisco. So, but I think that you really need to embrace the people and the community here in Mexico, because our experience living here for now 6 years is that they're very giving people, very loving, very giving.
They try to be helpful as much as they can. And, they're very understanding. If your English is not, if your Spanish is not good, a lot of them do know English, and so they'll try to help you with your Spanish. And they are very helpful people, and if you need something done, if they don't do it, chances are they know someone who does, and then they'll put you in contact with that
That's
person.
true. We don't have like the yellow pages or anything like that. Usually if you need any kind of service, it's by word of mouth, mostly. That's what it is. Yep. And you want to go to a trusted source, and even sometimes you're taking a chance with that. We know we've had experiences, but regardless from that aside, the culture and the people here are just really lovely, really lovely, and they're very welcoming. A lot of times they'll think that Mark and I are just on vacation here, and they'll say, welcome to Mexico, welcome to my country, thank you for coming. And then we tell them that we actually live here, and they're just, I don't know, kind of shocked sometimes.
Yeah, but they usually it's like a sense of pride for them sometimes. Is that like,
I think so.
When people are coming to Mexico to live.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
So.
Number 4 would be cost of living.
So my theory about this is if you're moving to Mexico and your cost of living is your number one thing, you're really moving to Mexico for the wrong things. There's just so much to Mexico that cost of living should be pretty far down the list. But for a lot of people, that is a reality. We understand that. They retire, they can no longer afford to live in their home country like the U.S., and so they come to Mexico to survive. But, if that's your primary reason for coming to Mexico, you really need to make an effort to invest yourself in the people, the culture, and all of the things we've mentioned before this. To make your experience a really good one, because if you don't do that, your time in Mexico could be pretty miserable.
The cost of living, for example, like, how old were you when you retired from your job? 60?
I was 2 months short of 60.
2 months short of 60, okay. But he had a job, he worked for the county, so he had a job where he was able to retire at that point. And coming to Mexico, we were able to do that. But again, I just want to say that, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to get my words out. What am I trying to say? Help me out here, Filippelli. He doesn't know.
No.
All right. Anyhow, if we had remained in the U.S. in the Sacramento area, Mark would have had to keep working for medical and stuff like that because we wouldn't have hit Social Security until we were 65. So we would have had to keep working until 65. And the cost of living in California is pretty pricey. It is.
Yeah.
Coming to Mexico, it's a whole different cost of living. And Mark figured out that it's a third of the cost of living what it cost us. There's things that we don't have to pay that we had to pay living in the U.S., like our utilities were pretty pricey. Garbage pickup, garbage and sewer was pretty pricey. I forget what the heck we were paying now on that. But when you added in all your cost of living for water, sewer, garbage, gas, electric, property taxes, I don't know what else, medical, it was pretty pricey. Mark had it for the medical, he got it through his company, free for him, but for me, he had to pay. So there's a lot of things living in Mexico that you don't have to worry about those costs.
Right. Several years ago, I figured out that for every dollar that I made, 68 cents of that went to some kind of tax or fee, leaving me with less than a third of my income just to get by on, the regular things that you need, vehicles, a house payment.
All
food,
that stuff, That was pretty pricey for sure.
Yeah.
Number 5, more freedom.
Yeah. Freedom has good and bad here. You have the freedom.
You got to weigh out the cons and the pros there in Mexico.
You have the freedom to hold loud house parties until 3 or 4 in the morning, and no one will complain. You also have the freedom, and this is not so good, to drive the wrong way down one-way streets or speed or
double park or whatever. There's really no traffic enforcement.
There's no traffic enforcement here. But the freedom, it can be both good and bad. I think there's more freedom for the good here than freedom for the bad. But you just have to take it all in. Fireworks,
loud music. Some areas in Mexico, there's more fireworks that go off than other areas. Our area, not so much, unless it's a celebration like New Year's or something. But other areas, like, where was that we were at?
Well, let's be honest, this is Mexico. It seemed like every day is a celebration of something.
Well, yes, definitely a celebration. But remember, we traveled somewhere, I'm trying to remember where, and there was like fireworks all the time that was going off. It was where that volcano is.
Cholula.
Yeah. Okay. And, again, it's just, freedom to do that sort of thing. In the U.S., there's that noise ordinance, right, where people will call on you for having a late night party and you're making too much noise, music's too loud, your dog's barking, whatever. It's always something, though, it seemed. Here, not so much. And maybe people just tolerate it more. I don't know. For us, it's really not an issue because we are retired. We could either stay up late, maybe join the party, go to another room, put in, earplugs, whatever, if that's what you want to do, because we could sleep the next day too, because we are retired.
Yeah. And occasionally we have, although I haven't heard him lately, there's a bad karaoke singer behind us who I think drinks a lot and then decides to do karaoke, which is, it's actually kind of entertaining for us because he's kind of funny to listen to, but he goes on for hours and hours.
It is, and pharmacies a lot of times will play music outside with big speakers. So, a lot of it is, it's just different from where you're living, whether it's Canada, the United States, wherever you're coming from. Just know that, there's more freedom here. You're not gonna have the police show up at your door telling you that your dogs are barking, your music's too loud, something to that effect.
Yeah.
You know, you're sending off firecrackers at 2 or 3 in the morning. You know,
Yeah.
that's not an issue here. So you got to be able to tolerate it, embrace it, whatever you want to call it. Here in Mexico, that's just kind of for sure.
Yeah, it's just going to happen. So
Yeah.
that's my best advice as well. Either tolerate it and embrace it if you can.
Yeah. All right. Next, number 6.
Less stress.
Less stress.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now, I'll start off with this one.
Okay.
When I was working, I had a good job, a job that I liked. We lived in a nice area, and other than like the commute to and from work, I didn't really think I had that many stress factors. But I didn't realize how stressed I was until after we'd moved to Mexico and I'd been here for a couple of months, and you just sort of feel that the stress level melt away.
It doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
It takes, I would say, really about 3 months, and you're like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that's just, like I said, for me, it was a factor that I didn't really recognize while I was working. But I mean, I worked up until about a week before we moved here. I retired, and then we moved here. And yeah, I would say just over time, I was noticing how, less stress and how different things were here in Mexico. And it's not like when I left my job, I didn't feel like I was that stressed, but there was just something about Mexico that takes it pretty much all the way. Now there are some stress factors here, like trying to
Get your RFC
and finish up your residency and stuff like that. Trying to communicate as much as you possibly can in Spanish with Spanish speakers. So that's a little bit of stress there, but nothing like what I was experiencing.
Yeah, the whole life, it's just different. But again, we're retired too. We're not working either.
Yeah.
So, keep that in mind. But it does take a while, and I will tell you, probably about 3 months to just really decompress from the environment that you came from to the environment here is what I would really say.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was number 6.
Number
7, healthier food.
Yeah.
I think that there's probably less chemicals used here in Mexico. I would think. A lot of things, a lot of people, is what I'm trying to say, will lose weight coming to Mexico too. They'll lose anywhere between 20, 25 pounds. And I don't know if that has to do with the food that they're eating, maybe doing more walking, spending more time outside.
Yeah, I think in my case, I lost about 25 pounds without even really trying. But honestly, some of that was probably the result of not driving through fast food places for lunch 5 days out of the week, and then just eating more natural foods here.
Yeah, I don't know. I not so much lost much weight, but as women, our body and hormones and all that kind of stuff, we're different. But I will say that I think the quality of the meat, the vegetables and things like that, I feel like it's cleaner here. And I know that Maddie from Tangerine Travels, she had a lot of health issues when her and Jordan moved here.
Yeah.
Because we watched their videos before moving to Mexico. And, she got over a lot of that stuff. And she thinks it was because of the food. Like, she wouldn't try a lot of things at first, and then she ended up trying the foods that she couldn't eat in the States and found out that
She had no reaction to it.
yeah, she had no reaction to it here. And I hear from a lot of people that they just feel better. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so number eight,
Ocho.
proximity to the United States.
So when Paulette and I started looking for another country to live in after we were going to retire, we looked at Spain, Portugal, Ecuador, and what we didn't realize at the time was proximity to the United States being important to us.
Right, because we have family and friends that are in the U.S. and other places.
Right. And so from those places I just mentioned, we figured it was going to take us at least 24 hours to get home if we had to come back for some family emergency. And so we looked at Mexico next in 2018, just fell in love with it, and it met that criteria, certainly, for proximity.
Yeah, I mean, we've driven to the States many times. What would you guess? 5?
Maybe 6 or 7, yeah.
I don't know how many times. And for us, where we live in San Luis Potosí, it's about a 7 to 8 hour drive crossing at the Laredo crossing. If you cross at Eagles Pass, it's longer. It's about
9 or 10.
Yeah, about 10 hours, something like that. I like it a little bit better myself, but I'm just saying it's doable to do in a day if you get an early start.
Yeah.
Also, flying, a lot of times Mark and I will take the bus into Guadalajara because we have a straight flight right into Sacramento, which is nice. And I can't remember how long that flight is. I thought it was 3.5 hours, but maybe it's like 4.5 hours or something. You always lose time, going one way and then you gain another hour coming back. So it works out pretty well that way.
I mean, we do have an international airport here, but it really only flies to Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth, and then from there you'd have to get another flight to your final destination.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much an all-day thing if we fly out of here. So a lot of times we'll just go to Guadalajara by bus, stay the night, and then take our flight the next day. And we do the same thing, reversing, coming back.
Yeah, and plus we like Guadalajara too. We'll spend a day or two in Tlaquepaque while we're there, sometimes on a return trip, but
yeah, but the proximity for us worked out really well, and thank God we really fell in love with Mexico. That was on our list too. I mean, let me tell you, we did a lot of YouTube, didn't we, on different places? Oh my gosh, we had like, I don't even know, 35 places. We had like a list, remember? And we were going through them, and we would watch a bunch of YouTubers talk about the area and learn as much as we could, and what the requirements were also for becoming permanent residents. And one by one it was, scratch off, next.
I mean, we looked at every country basically south of Mexico.
Yeah.
And then we also were looking in Europe, but after going there and realizing that the proximity to our home base in the U.S. was important, we pretty quickly eliminated any countries in Europe.
We did. And so the last place that we checked out was Mexico.
Yeah.
And we fell in love with it, and then we came out here in, like Mark said, 2018, and we moved here in 2019.
Yeah.
So sold our house, sold all of our belongings, and started our life over again, another chapter.
Yeah, and we really have, I can't speak for you, but I personally have not regretted 1 second of that decision to move here.
No, not at all. All right, number 9.
Retire early because you can. And this is kind of obviously tied to the cost of living here.
Right.
As well. Because it's so much less expensive to live here, you can rent a home for, say, I don't know, $600-700.
I think it varies depending on where. You can rent furnished or unfurnished.
Yeah.
It depends what area you're talking about. That's all I can say about that. When we first came to Mexico, we were in Morelia in an apartment that had parking there too. and it was fully furnished, and we were paying, do you remember how many pesos it was?
15,000 pesos.
15,000 pesos a month.
Which included, I think, the
Utilities.
internet and water. And then,
It covered gas, but if we used more or something, we had to pay the difference.
yeah,
Yeah, something like that. But so and that was 6 years ago. So that 15,000 pesos was somewhere between, what, $750 to $800 a month?
yeah.
Something like that. That was a little high, I think, but we were in a good location and it was
Yeah.
furnished. And like Mark said, some of the utilities were included with it,
Yeah.
right?
And I think a lot of it depends on the exchange rate that you're getting at the time, too.
Right.
Like when I looked at the exchange rate yesterday, as an example, it was 18.2 pesos to the dollar. We've seen it as low as about 16.5 pesos to the dollar, too, which is another
Right.
factor that you need to figure out, too, if you're coming from the U.S. or another country that has another currency, obviously.
Right. But we were in Morelia for 1 year. That's where we started off. It was Morelia or Querétaro. Flip the coin, it was Morelia. I wanted Querétaro, he wanted Morelia. So anyhow, so we leased for 1 year there, and then we knew that that was our starting point. And we came to, we actually passed through going to the United States, going in through Texas, through Morelia, or through San Luis Potosi, and fell in love with it, rented here after our lease was ending there, did a lease here for 1 year, and we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, fully furnished. That was 12,000 pesos a month, I mean.
Yeah.
12,000 pesos, which was between 6 to 700 a month,
700.
depending on the peso.
exchange rate, yeah.
And when we were in Morelia, we had it was a 2-bedroom, how many bathrooms? 2.5, I think, or something.
Like that, yeah.
2.5 bathrooms, something like that, in Morelia. And we also had parking with the furnished apartment that we had in San Luis. So just to give you an example, some places might be cheaper, some places might be more. It just depends on the area. You know, if you're in an expat haven, you know, you can probably think that you're going to be paying more. If you're not, you know, probably cheaper. Like we have a friend, shout out Deb, that's in San Cristobal, and I forget what she's paying, but it's very reasonable. I want to say it's 500 or less, and it's furnished. I think it's a 1-bedroom, which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, again, you know, depending on whether you're in an expat haven or you're not, is going to make a difference on your cost for rental.
Yeah, it's, you know, you're going to pay more in places like Ajijic and San Miguel de Allende than you are like where we're at here in San Luis or, you know, some of the other places like Zacatecas or Aguas Calientes, or you're just going to pay a little bit more. But if that's what your comfort zone is, you need to figure that out too. Like, do you need a place with a softer landing where more English is spoken? You know, or do you want to be forced to be more immersed in the culture?
The language.
In the language, yeah.
Yeah, like we are not in an expat haven by any means.
No.
So it was a harder landing. But again, we were in Morelia for the first year. Morelia had an expat community there.
they did.
Probably, what would you guess then? Maybe 100 people?
Yeah.
Something like that? Where they would do coffees and dinners
Yeah.
and meetups and stuff like that. So, you know, that was a softer landing, I
Yeah.
think, for us.
We used to say that we were the only gringos in our area. And then our friend Wayne moved in.
Oh.
We're not the only gringos anymore.
Yeah, Wayne
but-
lives in our community. And then
Yeah.
when Jeff and Sherry moved here,
Yeah.
right? Although I don't know if they're going to move to our community. They might move somewhere else. But it will either be 2 gringo, or, well, 2, and then our friend Wayne, that would be 3. And if Sherry and Jeff move here, you know, that would be 5 gringos.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not an expat haven here where we live. So that's another important thing that you really got to think about where you want to start out living.
Yeah.
You know, what your comfort level is on a lot of that. And that was number 9. I don't think I gave my fingers. And last one, number 10.
Yes.
Yeah, is if you're still younger and working, you can work remotely here in Mexico. A lot of people do it. They'll get jobs in the U.S. where they're coming from, or Canada, you know, and they'll have those jobs still here in Mexico online, most of them. So they work remotely.
If you're coming to Mexico and looking for work, it'll be important that you first have a job in the U.S. that will allow you to work remotely, because even if you can work in Mexico, the wages are going to be a lot less.
Yeah, they are going to be a lot less. So a lot of younger people will, you know, there are a lot of younger people that are moving, you know, to other countries and working remotely. I think more so than there ever has been.
Yeah.
You know,
like 30 years ago, do you ever recall hearing the term digital nomad?
No.
But now it's pretty popular.
Yeah. So there, you know, that's another reason is, you know, if you're young enough and you're working and you want to travel, come to Mexico or another country, you know what? You can do that. A lot of companies will let you do that, work remotely, and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So I've got one more.
Okay.
Number 11, not on your list. Tacos. Another good reason to move to Mexico.
Yeah, that term Taco Tuesday is cada dia here every day.
Every day is Taco Tuesday
Yeah.
in Mexico if you want it to be, and very good tacos at that.
And you can always, I mean, we have 3 now that have come into our community, 3 taco restaurants.
Yeah,
you know,
if not more. But
plus you have the stands that you'll find, you know, that do tortas or tacos or whatever you're gonna get. So yeah, the food is very good. Oh, that would be number
11.
I was gonna say a lot of the food, man. If you love Mexican food, I've always loved Mexican food, always. And what better place to be than here? You could have tacos for breakfast, tacos for lunch, tacos for dinner, you know?
Yeah, at 8 or 10 pesos per taco.
Well, they're the street tacos, a lot of them, you know, which are the small ones like that.
And these street taco stands, I mean, if you're coming from the U.S., you can walk up and see probably 50 different health code violations in the U.S. But if the line is long here in Mexico, forget about all that. Get in line.
Yeah.
'Cause you know the tacos are going to be good.
Yeah, you know, people would just freak out at the street cart vendors because, you know, there's really no gloves that are on their hands, you know. So if you're a germophobic person, you might have a problem with that.
Yeah, that might go back to number 6, stress level on our list. But yeah.
But yeah, Mark and I have no regrets about moving here. It's been 6 years. We bought our home. What did we say? When did we buy our home?
I think we've owned our house just about
4.5 years now, maybe?
4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years.
4.5, something like that.
Yeah, about 4.5 years now. And we did not know that was going to be happening, right?
Yeah, because we were just going to
rent.
live in one city for a year, move to another city, live there for a year, and just sort of bounce around like that. But
kind of like what Gringos R Us, Gina and Mark are doing to find their place where they want to settle.
Well, yeah, except they pretty much settled in Querétaro.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, another beautiful city and about the same climate as it is here, although it's a bigger city, bigger population. But
we love Mexico. We really do. And we have no regrets. And we're very happy. And I think that if you are considering Mexico, depending on the area, watch a lot of YouTube and definitely,
Boots on the ground.
boots on the ground.
Or tennis shoes on the ground.
Tennis shoes on the ground. You really need to check it out and see what works for you, and stay
Yeah.
there for a month if you can.
Yeah.
Because you really want to get a feel for the area. And like we always say, if you really like it, go back a second time and see if that feeling's still there. And one last suggestion that I want to add in is, if you are really considering moving to Mexico, try to do your temporary or your permanent residency as soon as you can,
Yeah.
because the price keeps increasing on the requirements.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
It goes up and up and up. And many people that say that they're going to retire in Mexico in 5 more years or whatever, they're blown out. They can't do it. They can't meet those requirements.
Yeah. Because the minimum financial requirements are going up by about 20% a year.
Yeah, and it's not good for those people that really love Mexico and want to come.
Yeah.
Because they can't meet that requirement financially.
Yeah.
You can meet it by savings, or you can meet it by your retirement benefits, or both, I
Yeah.
think. But usually you qualify for one or the other most of the time. But yeah, so my suggestion is always do it sooner than you think.
Right.
If you're temporary, you don't have to stay here. You just have to, the first year you get 1 year on temporary, you need to come back to Mexico before that 1 year is up, and then you can extend it for 3 years.
3 more years.
Right. If you're coming in as permanent, and like I said, you can go and come as much as you want to. That's not a problem on
Yeah.
temporary.
Yeah.
Permanent, you do your permanent, you can be out of Mexico for years.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're permanent. You've got nothing to deal with once you become a permanent resident, right?
So, exactly. So our suggestion is, even if you think you're still a few years away from retirement, get your residency now, because in a few years you may not meet the minimum financial requirements.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know what that would mean for you, if you would have to do border runs, and because one time they were really slapping down on that, remember?
Yeah. People going across the border and then come back, and they'd only get like 7 days or something like that.
Right. And if you had an apartment or something like that, what do you do in that situation, right? If they're not going to let you come back in for the 6 months, because usually it's 180 days on the tourist visa, which doesn't require anything but a stamp in your passport or a piece of paper. I don't know what they're doing now. I can't remember if it's just the paper or the stamp or both.
Right, but it's at the INM agent's discretion. They can give you up to 180 days. They could give you very few days.
Right.
And you really have no recourse.
Right, and having your
that.
temporary and having your permanent is your recourse.
Right, it solves that problem.
Yeah,
So.
that takes care of that. So,
All right,
is that it?
yeah.
All right. So from the two travelers in Mexico, as always, and leave comments below, you guys, if you have any other reasons for moving to Mexico, or your reason for not coming to Mexico. Do that one too.
Yeah.
All right. So from the two travelers in Mexico, as always,
What she did.
bye guys.
Bye.